Hello, everybody. We're back. It's Wednesdays. We live with Sam and Sports. My name is Sandile, aka Sandman. We got Cody, aka Lacazette, or Lucky, depending how he feels on the day. And our lovely guest for tonight is Mr. Sia Sibia. Well, we call him the governor in the streets, and other gents have other names for him, but I'll keep it at the governor for tonight. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be talking cricket, mainly on development and obviously the elusive World Cup that's coming up in almost 2 weeks' time. So between myself, Cody, and our lovely guest and a panelist to join us later, we'll be talking cricket, all things sport, and most importantly, all things development. To kick off our conversation today, Governor, it's nice to have you tonight. It's an honor to have you tonight. I just want to kick it off in terms of, as a coach that's in a very crucial space of cricket, which is varsity sports, where we tend to forget within the pipeline the development of cricket and sports in general in South Africa, and you having such a successful season, what is it? What's the impact of that space that we always forget in building the next professional international player?
Yeah, thank you, Sandman. Thank you, Sandman Sports and your viewers for having me on the show. It's a massive privilege. I know the history of this name and the brand, but I shan't claim anything. Um, yeah, Sandman. Yeah, it's look. Varsity cricket is a huge part of South African cricket. I think what probably needs to happen is unions partnering and tightening up relationships with universities within their provinces, especially academy spaces, sharing those resources. I know it's something that we are really aggressive about within the Gauteng space, us and the other university in our province. Um, yeah, sorry, I'm not going to advertise anyone else. Um, Yeah, so it's something that us and the other uni are working very closely with Gauteng in fostering and improving, but also there needs to be a greater understanding as to what the tertiary institutions stand for and who they service. Universities don't just service a region um, or a province or a union. They actually service, our university, the University of Johannesburg, services the world, the continent at large. So the development of African cricket actually sits in probably the strength of South African universities' infrastructure. The development of a Uganda or a Zimbabwe and those young players coming from those schools and wanting to study in South Africa, those doors and avenues should be open. I don't know if it should just be a South African cricket thing, because the African game also is important, should be important to CSA. But bring it back to home, I think universities, I don't know if the bodies that run cricket are serious enough about where players actually come from. There was a thing done last year, a little research survey, for example,
Mm.
where the chairperson of USA Cricket, Blanche Conradi, sent out a questionnaire, and in a conversation just at USA's, we're discussing how many professional, current professional cricketers come from the various universities in this country that have studied and got degrees and diplomas through a UJ, through a Tux, through a school down the road from UJ, through a Pucker. There's so many like cricketers. I mean, recently, Ryan Rickleton, who's a UJ alumni, still a member of the club. And Ryan was saying that the fundamentals and that growth space for him after school, finding himself, came from playing club cricket, university cricket, and then transitioning. So you play in USA, you play the former, sort of varsity cup, which is sad that it's no longer around that platform for people to see these young players in lights on TV under pressure in T20 cricket. It's very sad that varsity there's financial implications, I guess, to not be able to have a tournament like that for cricket. I know other codes have stuff going on, but we're crying out for assistance. I think we're crying out for sponsorship. We're crying out for private sector to take that varsity space. That's the gap for me. If you can fix that gap, then you don't end up with the situation that you have now in the selection of the Proteas and everyone up in arms and all of that sort of stuff. So that's the space. Let's not professionalize it, because I know in England the universities play their class as first class, but they play against provincial or county sides. They play against each other, and those are deemed as either list A um, or county caps. I wouldn't go as far as that because I think we're a stretch away from that. But let's recognize university cricket and the space that it can create, the comfort it can create for a young player's development, especially a young black player. There's housing, there's your fees are paid for, there's professional coaches, there's infrastructure in place for you to hit balls every day. We're going to probably get onto the topic of black batters at some point, but you're going to hit more balls, you're going to train every day, you're going to be in the gym, you're going to have a physio, you're going to have an SNC, you're going to have a coach that's there every day, you're going to have good facilities, you're going to play regular cricket against academies, Colts, sometimes professional sides. You have that, but it takes money to do that. It costs UJ
mm,
money to run the program we run. It costs tax money, their money.
mm,
It doesn't cost Cricket South Africa or the unions anything. Instead, maybe the unions are piggybacking off that instead of contributing and going halfway. But those are just my views and my opinions. These are not UJ's views. They are my views, and I want to make that crystal clear that everyone understands that. Um, but I am crying out for varsity cricket, and I'm sure my colleagues around the country are crying out for varsity cricket to be given a bit more love, a bit more care, a bit more
mm,
hunt, a bit more push, so that we can unearth this talent and develop this talent and push it forward and get more of it going. Because the more resources, the more you can push, the more you can develop guys, and maybe the faster you can. So yeah, that's a gap that I think can be covered. So yeah, excited.
Cody, you have anything to add on that point, my brother?
I mean, very interesting what you're speaking about, Coach Sia. And I know it's a conversation that we're probably gonna delve deeper into as we go. But you spoke about uh, players of color, and you said Black African, and I've had conversations with you, lots of them on the side, with regards to your plans to bring Black players into the environment. But could I just ask, or maybe for our viewers, maybe share a little bit of details in terms of what the university, since you've gotten there, because I know it's actually been quite strong. You've invested a lot into it. What has the university done in terms of that? Are we going out into all these different provinces to try and search for this black talent that we're speaking of? And what are we doing for these players while they're still in school? Are we keeping up? Are we trying to get them into the environment? You know what I mean? Like, are we training them before they actually get into the environment, so that when they get there, they're ready and they're not exposed as such?
Yeah, look, I mean, from our space's point of view, and I know that the other university down the road also does the same, and they try to get guys injected into their environment from a club point of view while you're in grade 9, grade 10. I don't think we look kind of grade 9, but we look at like a grade 10 when you've started to choose your subjects. We've got a couple of really good prospects that have grown in our space and are now grade 11. Some have actually transitioned into our space and have been our star players in the current season, previous season that we've just gone through. Um, so it is about going out there and trying to find guys. It is also about selling the power of being a student before you become an athlete, to these players, because
Mm,
what's happening is a lot of these black cricketers, and I know a few of them personally, are becoming washed out. So here's the cycle for me. I say washed out and I mean it. So someone gets picked and given an academy. So no one gives them direction from grade 10. about what, no one does an assessment, no one does an engagement with them about what their options may be after school. So some guys are not always going to go to university. Some guys might need to do vocational studies, but in partnership, and this is where I commend Lions Cricket in our region, and I also commend KZN, who we have partnered with and engaged with regularly on, because they have a lot of black players, in KZN, a lot of black African players in Gauteng, but also the schools in the Eastern Cape that have been open to allowing us to engage them, and sending talent to us and allowing us to see these players. So those three environments, not per se the unions in the Eastern Cape, but more the schools. But the union at KZN has been very open to engaging with us because of obviously the standard of cricket played within the Gauteng region, which allows a player to develop, but also understanding that there's obviously other agreements in place in terms of who has rights of refusal of the player, of the talent. How do we engage in their development, and how do we share the resources of developing that player? And those things are in place. So players get washed out because they get into a system, they're not engaged in grade 10 or grade 11, where they still have an opportunity. Early grade 11, you can still make a couple of changes. People are telling kids they must stop doing pure maths.
Okay.
Right? That's the first bad option. People are telling them, educators, coaches, you're going to fail, you must do maths lit. Now, if you're doing maths lit, it's going to make it very challenging to get an adequate APS score to get into a varsity if you actually have the capabilities. So from a school side, they're not getting pushed enough. They're just being used as commodities, which are athletes.
Ooh, yeah.
I know this is harsh, and I know some people are going to get offended. Guess what? I'm actually speaking to parents. I'm interested in parents and their kids developing. If you become a Protea, you become a Protea. But in my eyes, if you can get an opportunity to make an impact and get an education and change your community, your family situation, change your community, and hopefully in the future you can change our country, that to me is a win. If you become a Protea and you have a greater audience to be able to do that, then even better. But that's what universities are for. That's what the University of Johannesburg's cricket program stands for. And I know other spaces are doing the same. I'm sure of it. I don't think they'll be doing anything else. So that's what happens. No engagement in high school, poor subject choice and decision making and guidance, poor university choice if they do have options to study at varsity. So then they choose a general BA. Now, guys, between the three of us, how many of us know people that have done a general BA in the last 10 years?
A lot.
Oh,
how many of them are?
That is true. That is true.
So why are we gearing them up to that? Why are we setting them up for failure after cricket or after varsity? Why don't we gear them to stuff that can contribute to the economy so they don't sit at home? So what's wrong with guys becoming teachers if they've got the nuance of education and teaching? There's no shame in that. We actually need teachers and good ones. People that are going to influence kids positively and be role models. So we need that as a starting point. So I'm not advocating for something that I studied. I'm just saying that education is one. Now, what about guys going into logistics? What about guys going to politics? What about educating them in those and transferring whatever they can get, whatever they've got in terms of getting into courses? And also at university, you can build a degree. You know, you can transition between various spaces and then end up where you want to be and where you maybe should be. So that openness and that guidance needs to be consistent. So that doesn't take place. So then they choose the wrong course to do at varsity. Then they find themselves under pressure. Then they fail. So what do they run to? They then spend maybe more time doing cricket, and then someone picks them for an academy or a Colts team, and they give them 5,000 rand or whatever it is they get given. I don't know what the going rate is. And then they forget about studying. They forget about school. and then they don't take care. They look after the next 3 to 5 years of making, hoping that they're going to make it, because not everyone makes it. Some guys end up just being net bowlers, and then other guys just being coaches, and they go work at schools, and
uh,
they just follow this cycle where they haven't been empowered to be better and to see better for themselves. Because every day, every year, as an under 19 and academy coach, I was always looking for the next under 19 special cricketer, because I was in those spaces. I was always looking for the
mm,
next good academy cricketer. I was not always looking for a club cricketer. What is, you know? So you're always looking to recycle. So that's what happens. And we're not being honest enough as coaches with these guys, and girls about their future. Where do I see you in 10, 15 years' time? Not, okay, you can win me a game or two, you can win me a trophy or two, and
mm,
that's that. You move on. We need to be more
Yeah.
honest, and we need to find a cohesive way of working with academies and
mm,
unions that academies come from, cults or whatever the structure may be, and the universities. And we need to
mm.
make engagements more open and stop competing with a union with players. And unions must stop competing with universities, because we're in two different businesses.
Yeah.
But we have one thing in common: the athlete and the student.
It's
True.
that's yeah. So sorry, Sandman. Coach, I just, I mean, you being honest with, with the parents, with, the schools and all of that. But now I'm gonna throw it back to your side as a university, because I know there's times where I don't want to use the word desperate, but I'm gonna use it for lack of better words. There's
Mm.
times
Mm,
where we we need the players. Is there a system whereby, because I know in university you need to get a certain number of credits to play in the next university competition. So are we
Mm.
then saying, with what you've just said, are we saying as a university, if we've got a Tepo Maluleka from Limpopo who is a brilliant player and will strengthen the side as a black player or a black African player, but their marks are not right, do we then give him that option of saying, listen, if you don't get these marks, as good a player as you are, we're not going to take you in, regardless of how desperate we are for him? Are we saying to him, as good as you are, we need you to get, hypothetically speaking, 60% for maths and this, so that when you come into the university environment, you're not coming here to do a higher certificate, but a a serious degree or a serious diploma that will one day go into advance and move on? Are we Do we have such things in place to just make sure that those players in high school that we're bringing in and we are saying we want them to be not only athletes but student athletes, do they have that as university? Have we, or rather as our the UJ brand, have we set that aside to say, listen, you need to do one, two, three in order to be into this environment, not just your cricket, but also your studies?
Yeah, definitely. We've got that in place. I mean, we've got a great education support section at UJ, which engages with every sporting code or every sporting manager. So already I've started the process before the applications opened at UJ,
Yep.
um, with who are my candidates that I'm interested in bringing in. So I've
Yeah.
shared that. We then go through a process of setting up appointments where they'll be guided by the academic advisor in that
Yeah.
department. Then we will do a follow up and an engagement through that. In that meeting that they will have with their parents and the academic advisor, the options based on where their marks are and where their grade 11 marks were, we'll then work out what their options may be, and based on their interest also.
Yeah.
Yes, sometimes kids like to kick for touch from 80 meters out and say that they want to do physiotherapy, but they're doing pure maths. So that
Yeah.
meeting requires guidance. So we guide the parents, we guide the athlete in terms of understanding. And then there's a follow-up. So, for example, just a text message to say, hey man, I know you're going into June mid-year exams now. Just a bit
Yeah.
of encouragement. That those programs and those types of engagements are in place at the University of Johannesburg. But also, you can still build various skills through high certificates.
Yeah. True.
So
Yeah.
we can still do that. So it's very important that we open we open that up and we give that option to the parent, that because let's also look at a space constraint. We don't have enough universities in this country. I know that the University of Johannesburg gets um, probably over like 500,000 applicants a year, but we take about, I stand to be corrected in the stat, but somewhere
Yeah.
in those ridiculous numbers
Yeah.
of
True.
want to
True.
study at the University of Johannesburg. However, UJ only takes in 10,000 every year. So you can
Yeah.
imagine how much I panic and I fight to just get those 6 cricketers I want in. Because our sports department at UJ has rugby, who's got way more needs in terms of the number, the capacity they need to bring in. They compete in Varsity Cup. Then there's football, who are doing really, really well at UJ, and they need to bring in a certain capacity. They've got boys and girls, Hollywood Bets, ABC Motsepe, and there's Varsity on both sides. Then there's netball, who are doing extremely well also, and they play Varsity Cup and USAs. Then there's athletics, who also, I mean, are doing exceptionally well. We've got a couple of Olympic athletes at our university.
Yeah.
Hopefully, one or two of them will break some records and bring home gold this year. So there's all of that. However, there are things in place at UJ, specifically our university, but I also know about our colleagues. There are other colleagues that are also hamstrung by academic, strictness, where if you don't get skills in for English, you're out. But at UJ, I can find a way. Either. But our first thing is to make sure that you do your best in high school.
Yeah.
You have to do your best. And if we need to support you, we've got a mentorship program. So if you are seriously interested in our space and you want to be part of it, we've got a mentorship program where one of our student athletes is tasked to follow, track, support, aid you in your journey until you get into UJ. Um,
Beautiful.
and those things are intentional,
Yeah.
and they go as far as that. It's not just guys that are in Johannesburg. Guys that are in KZN have a mentor. Guys that are in Cape Town have been introduced to a mentor. Guys that are in the Eastern Cape. So it's then up to the athlete that we're trying to, the recruit or the candidate, to make the most of those resources, and the family to also stay constantly in engagement with us. So we don't get the number one pick yet, but it's not about that for me. I think number one pick can also be dangerous because you can lose them within 3 months. We've had that before. In my
True.
first,
True.
we've had some really talented players, but we've lost them because they've gone into professional systems immediately.
Yeah.
So we want to be able to spend time with someone and develop them and go walk the walk with them. And by the time they leave in 3, 4, 5 years' time, they, like you, Cody, they're well versed. They know their options. They know how to make decisions, and they know how to lead in the environment and within the community. So that's a successful story, for example.
Appreciate it.
Coach, we've got a couple of comments coming in here. And one of them is, if there's a cry for help from university level for these young athletes to get them attention and support, where does the whole funding go to?
So-called funding go to?
Yeah. Look, guys, we've got to support programs. So I can tell you now, University of Johannesburg, as much as we produce a cricketer every year or two, I don't want to go naming guys. I think, lucky I don't know where that 4 to 5 million rand went to. I'd like to see a piece of it, because there are guys that I work with that are programs. I like to see their education, so it doesn't come out of my club's account. Where we've got guys, they've got a tuck shop running that they raise funds to pay for the next kid that comes in. So our current students are raising funds for a guy that's going to come in and maybe he doesn't have good enough marks. He has to do a high certificate. And the high certificate means that the university doesn't pay for that. It's not allocated in that scholarship budget, that whatever X amount that we get. However, the club, the University of Johannesburg Cricket Club, has to raise funds or seek sponsorship or whatever to be able to fund those guys. And we've got guys that are playing professional cricket that, or Division Two cricket that were funded by our club to do
Yeah.
higher certificates, and good on them. They some passed, some bombed out, but it's no small feat doing a higher certificate. 4 years in one, 4 years worth of work.
Oh,
So we had a couple of guys that got a couple of hidings from it, but they're better for it now. They've engaged and said, "Can we do it again?" I said, "Yeah, you paying for it. I'm not paying." So yeah, look, I think the conversation needs to be had with. I think we've had an engagement before at CSA, and they do try. We also got to understand that we've taken a dip. There's a bigger effect on this, guys. In order for Cricket South Africa to fund and get money out, think back when we were number one in the world.
Yeah.
And we were probably number two in the one-day stuff. We were top three in the T20s. The purse becomes healthy, so that trickles down. If the Proteas are not number one in the world, it affects everything at the bottom, guys.
Yeah.
So this is now me speaking from someone that has worked within that space. I know the effects of that. And if you think about it, it's like our if the rand doesn't do well, petrol's going up. It affects everyone. It affects food. It affects the price of sugar, whatever it is. So it's the same way with the Proteas being number one. So as coaches, we need to make sure we're producing quality also. We're not just throwing balls for the sake of throwing balls. We need to look at a holistic development of a player, not just someone that can bat and he's daft. He's going to get 30 and get out. No, we need cricketers that score hundreds, double hundreds. And we need black cricketers that are going to do that. But we also need to create equity in the space, not just equality. Equity. So opportunity warranted.
Yes, it's good word, yeah.
Love it.
That's what people are crying out for. They're not crying out for an extra black batter. They're crying out for franchise cricket and youth cricket to be intentional. And yes, that's where the funding CSA put into. They put it into schools weeks and they put a mandate in place and said 2 black African players. Guess what? If you do that, the members and the coaches, because the coaches are desperate to keep their jobs, there's something called malicious compliance, people. So, if you know you've got a pup, your 2 black batters are pup. The best you have, they're not good enough. They're not playing at the top leagues or cricket schools or at the RPC, the Regional Performance Center, but you've got 2 players. Now, you must hold those bras at the top. What do guys do? And I saw this when I was a framework coach. Sandman knows. I used to tell horror stories. Those people have let this team down. They don't get to complain about the current Proteas team.
Yeah.
Because they let the system down. They were the coaches that took a black African batter, that's a number 6 batter, and made him open the batting.
Yeah.
Because you know why? If we get out in the first over, great. Cool. Then the rest of the other guys come and bat. I'm not going to say who.
Yeah.
The guys come and bat, and they're going to win me the game. That's malicious compliance. So you are doing it. We've got a black batter that opens the batting. But he's not an opening batter.
He's exposed.
You haven't prepared him to open the batting. He's probably never opened the batting. He never opened it under 13, under 15, under 17. Now at under 19, you thrust him up there, and you go, right, he's my opening batter. You're killing him.
Oof, yeah.
That's why black cricketers don't want to play.
On that note, Governor, I don't know, because I know how you feel about this conversation. We've had it 8 years ago. My ask to you now, if you look at from the current squad that we have in the current World Cup squad, for example, and having been in the framework space and having done the work in the framework structures where you would pick a black African player, not just because you need to meet a target, but they actually play in that certain position that's required to meet the end goal, which is playing for the Proteas. And how has that affected us? Because, like you say, some coaches pick players because they need to meet targets, where some coaches actually pick based on the role and that they're good enough to play in their position. looking at the current squad going into World Cup, where we haven't put in a Black African player in the top 6, but there are players like Lisiba Ngwepa, Sibs Makanya, Andile Mokhachane, Akaya Zondo. How do we get it right in the franchise structures so that we can make up the World Cup squad or the Proteas squad in general?
The fact that we say that use the term target
Yeah.
is already my problem. They are not targets, these guys. Lesiba Mgwepe has a T20 100 for the SAA team in Zimbabwe. What happened after that? Did he play?
Nothing.
Did he get given a shot?
No, nothing.
Right, malicious compliance. Sims Makanya captain SA under 19, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
He did.
correct.
What happened? Not
Nothing.
enough equity, guys. So Sims must establish himself. But a young 18-year-old other kid walks in and he plays. Malicious compliance. We'll have them there, but that's as far as we're going to go. So the time takes longer. When that 18-year-old comes in ahead of a Sims or 20-year-old and everyone raves about him being the next best thing, he bats ahead of Sims, or we're just using Sims Makani at the moment. Sorry, Sims. He gets a higher profile than him, probably ends up earning a bit more money than him because he's getting more game time than him. That delays. That's why I talk about malicious compliance. That then delays a Sims Makanya's development and exposure. For example, we're just using him as an example. All right? That delays. That's why I call it malicious compliance. So we have black batters, but we're not giving them equity and enough opportunity and enough time, care, and development. And that sometimes that development it takes time. So we got to be a bit more patient. So we got to play a bit of a yo-yo. In, play, perform, find a role, when to insert. That's where now our coaches also need to be braver. But our coaches, again, guys, it's not fair. They've got families to feed. So they have to take the route of looking after themselves.
True.
But they need to be brave. Why is everyone brave to pick a young, sorry to say this, but a young white 19-year-old that's just played SA under 19 and he walks into a franchise team and he opens the batting?
True.
Why must Andile Mokhachane, for example, played for South Africa under 19 in India and he had an exceptional one-day series. Exceptional one-day series. But it's taken how many years? So 2020, it's taken 4 years for Andile to come through.
Yeah.
Because now he's playing under a coach who backs him, no disrespect to the previous coach, but he had too many batters. So Andile wasn't going to get a chance, or much of a chance. But being in the environment has developed him and made him become what he is. And I hope to see so much more because Ace is one of my favorite batters around. One of the most exciting guys that I've worked with, as a coach. So there's things that are going on, smoke and mirrors, that need to be addressed and openly, and people must stop being offended.
I love what you're saying, Coach. And I know, you've worked at the high level, you've worked at the SA under 19, you've worked with a couple of franchises, and now you are in a university environment, which I think you are absolutely enjoying it because of what we've seen and the impact that you've had on a lot of players. Now, I just want to understand, as you know, Sandman touched on the World Cup squad. I want to understand if there's enough communication between varsity coach, academy, provincial, and Cricket South Africa or national level. Is there enough communication in terms of, listen, we need, in the next 2 years, we need to produce 2 brilliant African batters? Are we talking about that? Or is that another conversation that we're shying away from and we're throwing guys under the bus and we're just moving them up? And I know a lot of coaches say, a lot of our black players are, they just take and they don't give back, or they become complacent. But now I'm asking, are the coaches having the right conversations about the players? Because I know from school level, there's a lot that happens with camps and all of that. But are we doing the same with from university into franchise and into the national setup just before you go into the World Cup squad?
Yeah, I think there could be better conversation. Sometimes there's a lot of egos involved, like,
Oh
to be
yeah.
honest. There's a lot of egos involved in my players, my system. I'm in charge now. Wow, wow,
Oh,
wow. So people need to let that go because you know what? Guess who suffers at the end of the day?
the
Two things
players.
suffer: the player and the system. That's what's
Yeah,
happened here. So a franchise coach, when you phone him as a university coach, not
yeah.
even a franchise coach, because I'm bad. I skipped the queue. I shouldn't do that. It's nice because when I speak to, and I'd like to mention his name, and I hope he won't kill me, Shapey, Kurt Human, the Lions Academy and Colts coach, I think, yeah, current academy coach. He and I tell Shapey about a guy, a player. Shapey will then engage and he'll follow that bra.
yeah,
He will,
Mm.
okay, send me numbers. Okay, send me a link of the game. And then when we play against the Lions Colts, he wants that guy to either play in his team so he can have a conversation, or he wants him to play against him in a certain role to see maybe, oh, this is maybe where he identifies him from. So in our environment, I think it's great, but I think holistically the conversations could be better. Look, there's a coaches conference that takes place every year at cricket with Cricket South Africa. All the franchise coaches go there. University coaches, I don't recall any of them ever being invited to that thing. The top
oh,
eight
but
universities.
kids.
True.
So if you're going to drive a playing philosophy, this is how we want our guys to play white ball cricket. Maybe I'll hear about it because I can pick up the phone and ask Russ Domingo at Lions, our coach here at Lions, and say, "Hey, coach, what happened at the conference? What do you guys? What's the way you want us to play? How do you want us to manage how we're going to get guys from school to transition into varsity and into club and into academy and Colts and then into your space? You know,
Mm.
um, I, I think that's where the problem lies. So a Division Two coach, an exceptional Division Two coach, Mark Charlton, who I think is one of the best coaches in the country. Credit to him again, another good season with Northern Cape. Um, Charlie picks up the phone and he phones, to ask. He doesn't have a big ego. I'm not saying the other bras have big egos. Maybe everyone's just a bit too busy. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I don't
But I mean,
know.
you've been there. I need you to tell us. It's
Hey
an ego
guys,
thing.
it is an ego thing, but it's also personalities. So I don't smack Sia because Sia tells the truth, for example. And I don't want Sia to overtake me or whatever. I don't know what it is. The guys are too insecure. Just be liquor, man. Just share the information and invite the university coaches to a platform where they can have a conversation with all franchise coaches. You never know what player you're going to find at a university in a university space,
Mm.
and guys like Klaassen, Vian Libbe,
Yeah,
Rickleton, you name them, they played there. Delano Potgieter, they went to varsity, they played USAs, they played varsity cup. Like, there's players there, there's guys there's rough diamonds that are starting to show their worth, and I think it's a good place. I'm sorry, but you're not going to find very often. You're going to be very, very lucky. You probably must go play the lotto because the last guy that I know that came from club cricket is a guy called Derek Brandt from the Cobras, T20. Stocky guy, used to whack it. He is the only guy that I know that came from club cricket. He used to play for a club called
yeah,
Northern School in Cape Town. This is years ago now. Club
yeah,
cricket to professional cricket because he could whack a cricket ball. And at the time, I think T20 cricket was, the in thing, and we were playing Champions League still with the franchises. That's the only guy that I know personally. Maybe there's other guys that have come through club cricket, but it's very rare that a franchise coach is going to find a player in club cricket. Not necessarily. Club cricket is great for players, but the universities help the 18-year-old turn into the 22, 23-year-old,
Yeah.
learn his game,
Mm.
mature a little bit. Not that he's ready to make it at 23, but then he's got 2 years in a Colts Academy space or
Yeah.
a club to bang it and score a lot of runs, take a lot of wickets.
Mm.
The foundation has been built between school, the foundation for men's cricket is built at varsity, and then the foundation of professional cricket is built at academy and Colts, and then Division 2 or wherever for 3-4 years. I don't know, depending on the guy's performance and his luck, and maybe everything else that comes into play with the stars aligning. Then that guy's ready to make it at 26, 27. How do you think about that?
True.
Oh,
On that note, coach, I think because you got quite a couple of kids that you've obviously worked with in the World Cup squad. Can we just touch base on players that have obviously made it, and we'll get to that conversation of looking at players that missed out, and obviously going back to the conversation of equity and equality of Black African players within the squad. As you can see on the screen, that's the squad that's obviously in the World Cup. And you got players like Kutsia Janssen that obviously you've seen through in their younger days, and like you mentioned, Ricketson. What's your thought on this squad going into the West Indies and the unknown USA surfaces?
Yo, guys, this is a lottery. I don't know. I think the coaches have picked well. I would like to see a couple of guys maybe in the mix, maybe, and also like if guys don't get an opportunity and also don't perform at critical times, you know. Okay, can I ask you guys a question? Sorry, I a question.
Okay.
How many players in that World Cup side? Please, can you put that up again?
Let's see that World Cup squad.
How many of those players played SA20?
Played or didn't play?
Played.
All of them.
Okay. How many? Is that fair? That's what I'm going to ask. Is that a fair measure for the Black African
No.
players?
Wait. We lying. Nokia didn't play though. SA20 was injured.
Yeah, but
is
he's
the only
good
one
enough.
out of that squad.
He's playing in the IPL.
If he's played in the IPL, he doesn't count.
Ah.
And also, where's he going to bowl 150 in 2 weeks' time when he's bowling 140 and getting quassed?
True.
Sorry, I'll take it back. Maybe he will.
What was your question, coach? I'm interested in that.
My question was, how many of those guys are played SA20 and had the opportunity to play at the highest level in terms of the biggest spectacle in T20 cricket in South Africa, which is SA20 currently? I'm sorry that our motherboard, obviously the CSA T20 probably doesn't get as much of what it deserves because I don't know. So it's a business decision, I'm sure. And so, why you guys laugh? I'm serious. I'm being honest here, guys. Listen. So those guys that got left out, that didn't get picked, or we don't enforce that our bras must get picked now. So how many of the Black African batters had a shout or an opportunity at playing in that? Or how many? Because I know Semelani was in the squad. I know Ayat Kamani was in the squad. I know.
I think to answer your question, I think the only player that actually got a chance and consistently played within the teams is Sibs, with JSK there with these performances.
JSK. Where was Sibs batting for JSK?
Sibs was batting at 5, if not 5.
5.
The top 4 was heavy packed for him.
Okay. No, I'm not staring at you. I'm just asking. So, who is he competing with if he's batting at 5?
He's competing with a Clausen and a Miller, depending on the day.
No, just saying. Just saying. I'm looking to see.
But what are you getting? What are you getting at? Yeah, I want to hear.
I think I know what he's getting at.
You are doing.
I
want to hear.
No, I just want to know: is selection based? Because I've heard some rumors that guys got picked from SA20. Just like stuff that's in the media and you read and you're like, hey. But then not all our players are getting an opportunity. They're getting guys from Afghanistan. They're getting guys from
True.
the other places. And I'm going. So what? When does South African cricket? Is this about South African cricket? Maybe it isn't. So
It's a
then,
business
why do we
thing.
use it as a platform then? Because we basically jarring the arm a little bit here and going, right, this arm and this shoulder is going to be heavier than that one because SA20 is seen by everyone, but
And
the CSA T20 is a bit, where all our players get to play. Um, you know, I'm just because we're having this conversation, and I'm just
I think to partially answer your question, I think the biggest issue that I recognized with the T20 challenge and the SA20 is that it's the timing of it. And I've been having conversations in the background in terms of let's use the T20 challenge like the Africa Cup back in the days. And that's how they picked in that tournament that we had called the MSL, where
yeah.
we had the Africa Cup and we used those players from the Africa Cup as wild cards for the MSL, sorry. So I think that if we play the T20 challenge prior to the auction, it goes a long way for us to start
Mm.
recognizing and seeing which players are playing the right positions. For example, like Kaya opening for the Dolphins or batting a three for the Dolphins to position and select accordingly for the Proteas. And I think that's how we need to start positioning the T20 challenge to get the right benefits out of it and the SA20.
Okay. So do you think those owners are going to try that? You see,
I
I
got
Oh,
got this comment here. Imran Tahir coming out to play. Why don't you give Caleb Saleka from Northwest
facts.
Dragons a chance to play former S19 World Cup leg spinner? Give him a crack, man. I'm just saying. I'm joking, guys. I'm joking.
Peter from Lions. Peter from
Guys,
Lions, he's been doing well. T20 challenge.
I
He's the
don't coach.
mystery.
I don't coach there, so I'm just giving my supporters' views. Just to know, like, I want people to know that we're watching, man, and we see what's going on. So
True.
yeah, so
True.
to that World Cup side, Sandman, I
Yeah.
think I think they picked very well, barred one selection, in my opinion. All
Which
right.
one?
Okay, so Lungisani Ngiti, Wangagiti
Yes.
KwaZulu. Lungisani Ngiti is one of the best T20 bowlers in our country. Numbers don't lie,
Fact.
yeah.
Fact.
right? So what is the excuse around Lungi's omission from the initial 15? Why is he traveling to New York as a reserve?
What a vibe.
Why?
He's playing the West
Both
Indies
of them
series,
were
but he's not
injured.
playing the World Cup.
If both of them were injured,
Oh, oh yes. That is a big question.
if both of them were injured, why does Lungi miss out? Because the other guy bowls 150. I'm sorry, guys. I hope people understand isiZulu nesixhosa. Uzoyikhola phi i-10 kilometers in 2-3 weeks? Then you know what? Then we must just settle it. We go, right. Nandre Berger, you going?
Because
Fact.
he's the fittest.
He's
Yeah.
got enough cricket. He's the fittest guy. Why are we speaking about a guy that bowls 150 when he's not bowling 150?
So are you saying, Governor, we could
I'm
have
not saying anything,
replaced?
I'm
No,
asking.
I'm just asking based on your statement, Governor, that a player like Anas, we could have substituted maybe with Ngito Burger, who've been playing cricket consistently and have been their workloads have been managed consistently throughout the
Yeah,
last 2 months or so.
maybe I didn't like the kind of English used because I studied English, so I kind of
Oh,
understand. I kind of understand things when I read between the English.
Yeah.
So between the English, I got that. Oh, this guy bowls. We're looking for raw pace.
fact.
Is that what was in the article in the interview? Am I
Yep.
wrong?
Yeah.
Something along those lines. Is Andig Nokia or is Nandre Burger not raw pace?
Proper, and
He's
he's
class.
a left
Yeah.
armer.
Okay.
Which
No,
means something
look, we
else
don't know
again.
what the coach wants because he's already got a left armer in Janssen. So if he's
Okay.
going, but is Janssen his all rounder or is Janssen his left armer? That's where now I'm thinking about how they thought about the balance of the team. So
Mm.
now because also they're not certain about perhaps. Anrich, the only plus point that I need to give, and maybe this is where Coach Rob was thinking,
Mm.
because you need to always be devil's advocate. You can't just sit here and criticize and sound like
Yeah.
we're criticizing. We're just asking questions. Anrich
On,
Nokia
so-
played in
sorry,
the
Governor,
major.
before you continue the statement, can I bring in the rest of the team so that we can settle this conversation with a wider panel and make it more interesting?
No, you guys are gonna be.
Smooth, can I ask that you behave, eh?
This is great. So, guys, Anrich Nokia played in the major leagues last year. I think, is it last season? Last year? The first one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
last year.
Okay, advantage Anrich Nokia. But fitness, bowling 150, kulanga raw pace. They're talking about raw pace. So raw pace is 145. Tontoni. I'm not an international coach. I coach international, but I'm just thinking, where are you gonna find that pace? And if we are picking the best team that can win us a World Cup, well, that's what the statement was. These are the best
Yeah.
players. Then sorry, but we must go back and look at Lunging Sun and Gitti's numbers. Who's
Facts.
gonna put the numbers up, guys? Have you got those stats? Sorry, Maslata is sleeping now.
I don't have his stats on hand, but I know at one stage Ngiti was his average in the death overs, or his economy rate in the death overs was going at 4s, if not 5s. And he's not the quickest, but with that bowling economy rates at the death, showed it wins you a couple of games in tight situations.
Guys, that
And
guy's got a wild slower ball also.
And
True.
yeah, he can. Variation.
Okay, I'm going through Lungisani's international T20 stats. He's played 40 matches. He's got 60 wickets and an economy rate
Yep.
of 9.27 and an average of 20. All right.
yes,
His IPL record is actually better. By the looks of it, his economy in the IPL is 8.29 and his
Yep.
average is 17.9. So that's Lungi. I say got 150.
Yo.
Yo.
Nah.
No,
I
it's
sense
important.
violence. Yeah,
Why are you looking for 150 there? And I just want us to go.
He's trying to make a
I'm trying to make a point.
No,
150 is better because he's played 31 games. He's only got 38 wickets. Here's the danger: 38 wickets. His economy is 7.14 and his average is 19.5. In IPL, he is 46 matches, 60 wickets in IPL, 8.96 at an average of 26. So, are you counting IPL or are you counting T20I? Because in terms of wickets, Lungi's got more.
true. And he's got a better economy rate.
And okay, so yeah, I'm just trying to. Am I poking a bear here unnecessarily?
No, I'm listening. I'm just listening, guys. I'm listening. I'll come in. I'll come in. I'll come in when. I'll come in when. I think it's necessary. But for now, I just listen.
Okay.
Mo?
I've been enjoying the chat. I've been enjoying the chat, honestly.
So that's what I've got to give about that selection. But other than that, I think either way, 50-50, guys. But the biggest one I want to give a shout out is Ortneo Bartman, guys.
Yeah.
Fact.
We've picked a guy on form. We've picked a guy on form and performance. I know the
And
other
Rick.
guys, but this guy, man, he's heat. And Rickleton. So we're heading in the right direction. We're not going to win every battle in
Can I?
selections.
I actually have a question for everyone here. So we were talking about the inclusion of the article first and foremost about finding black batsmen, right? And then we were talking about getting more players of color, black players within the Proteas setup. Isn't there fear of going back to now we calling players quota players because I feel like it's time South Africa kind of re-identified what's a quota, and basically aren't players supposed to be in the squad due to merits instead of the color of their skin. I don't know if you guys get what I'm trying to say.
You're right. So, spot on. However, who sold the concept quota to people of color and to the media?
Q.
Who sold it? Was it black people? Did we call ourselves quotas?
No,
I'm
No,
into
we
that.
didn't. Media is not run
no,
by
I get
us.
it. No, I get it.
Quotas.
No, I get it.
Why? But there's white players have 6 positions in a team. They
Yeah,
have 6 positions. Aren't they a quota also?
Yeah.
yeah,
They just
Don't
yeah,
play
yeah.
with don't play with your hands. Come in. You're very quiet.
Who, me? No, no, no. I'm thinking about the fact that we went from an era where we rewarded players like Aaron Pangiso. Okay, Aaron Pangiso. It came a point where I felt like he didn't deserve to be part of the setup, right? We were just calling him because now we needed more black players to be part of the team. There are players, not just Aaron Pangiso, but there are players also like Uli Nabuto Tobe also back in the day where we called him up because we needed more black players within the team, right? And then
But look,
at some points, if we're being honest with ourselves, at some point I felt like Utema Bavuma was being given the captaincy because
Oh,
there were some let's give a black player the captaincy.
that's a tough conversation that requires.
So I feel like the there should come a time where I feel like cricket South Africa should re-identify, re like basically come with a different meaning when it comes to when they say quota. What do they really mean? Come out and tell us what do you really mean when they say quota? The quota system. Because we could also say white people, like basically, white people could also come in and say we're not being given a fair chance when it comes to football in South Africa. Especially when it comes to the squad, they're not being given a fair chance. You guys get what I'm trying to say. So you look at Ukrobla. Look at Ukrobla. How many times has he's been deserving to be part of the Bakuraba final, but he wasn't part of the squad. He could also have been on some. You know what? I deserve as a white man within the sport. I deserve, and there are not many of us who are actually representing us within the football setup. So now let's come back to cricket. Aren't players supposed to be given the opportunity to represent their country on merit instead of the color of their skin? I don't know if I'm making sense, guys. Because
I
literally,
get you.
if there's one word that literally frustrates me in cricket that we still use, it's this quota, this word quota or quota system.
Mm.
Yeah, they just
Um,
changed it to targets.
True, true. I think
You
I,
know,
I think
It's
in that
really
regards, Smoo, Mo and Sia, I think you guys can give us lovely closing comments, and Cody on what Smoo has elaborated there.
One,
it doesn't.
I go back
Let the lady go.
to not agreeing because when there's a lot
Mo
that
never agree with me. She will never agree with me. So
you the head coach Rob Potter did say that he was focusing on the importance of forming a winning team. That's up for conversation as well. We would see, do we then not have elite black batsmen that can be part of that competitive team going into a competition like the World Cup? Why are we then only focusing on um having these players in only for the 2027 one? And then what is the actual goal of them starting with the World Cup that is happening now? If the current team goes in and they win, then we're going to have another conversation. It's okay, the competitive team that we chose won. So what more do you want from us? If they lose,
Yeah,
it's also
Hawine.
we'll see why.
no, but
Madlozi athi ngeke bawine.
And if we're then go into conversation about let's say like you said, white people not being represented in football, we must look at history and the demographics of it. Which side is more gravitational to which sport? That's also an issue that we still have, and each side is not being represented properly in either football or cricket or netball, if we can put it in that sense. So regards the issues of where the funding is going, who is selected because of their quota or the color of the skin. It's also a matter of what are the athletes actually interested in, what do they get the support in the most, and who's being watched. For me, that's it.
You know what, Mo? You touched on demographics, right? So you look at schools like, so I'm going to use schools here in Durham. You look at schools like DHS,
Mm,
Glenwood, who get the most funding in their
mm,
respective sports. So let's say, for example,
the most.
I know Glen Ashley, Glen Ashley, sorry, Glenwood. Glenwood gets a funding sorry, of I think it's in millions. I think it's 1.5 million. I don't know when it comes
Mm,
to cricket. When it's rugby alone, it's 1.5 million, as far as I know, right? And then you flip it, you come to the townships. When it comes to the townships, they don't fund a specific school itself. They fund the community. They say the community of Kwamash or the community of Umlazi, we have funded 100 and something. The difference, look at the difference. A community compared to a school, right?
mm,
Why can't they say we are funding a school such as
You did.
Comtech? Why can't they say we are funding a school like Comtech High School, 1.5 million to help them boost their cricket facility, to boost their cricket developments or institutes or program, for example? I think that
mm.
would help a whole lot compared to them saying we're going to sit community and
San,
doing this. I don't know if
Sandile,
you.
you see, these two are gonna get into an argument again here. Uh, uh,
No, but I'm agreeing
As
with
I said,
Mo. I'm agreeing with Mo though. I was agreeing with Mo. I was agreeing with her.
my last comment to everybody on the floor. Spook gave us a solid ask, and I was like, Mo, Cody, and Sia, please close it up for us. And Spook's checking spanners in the works here. So yeah,
He's right. It's a conversation that
What's
needs to
up,
be
brother?
had.
yeah. Um, yeah. I think Mo touched on it. In she wasn't really deliberate about her words. She wasn't like straight up. But I think again, it's a thing of, are we selecting a team that is, and see, I know you said Ngeke Bawine, that is good enough, or are we selecting a team with this system? Are we selecting a team that's going to go win, or are we looking after the quota? That's my ask with all of this.
They've clearly said that they're selecting a team that is competitive enough to win. So we clearly see what is going on here. Clearly, there's some players that are in the quota that are not competitive enough because they're not taken care of. And it goes back to the grassroots level of things, which is
Oh,
why we're having a conversation today. I personally feel. So
so
that's why I mentioned earlier, Motsi, if this so-called competitive team comes back with the results that we're looking for, it's going to be another conversation. Uguti, when we go in and choose the same team, are you going to fight and say we're not meeting the quota? Are you going to fight and say there aren't enough black batsmen in Southern Africa?
But also think
Sidia,
about the mental side. Think about the mental side of it, where a player now is on some. Am I here because of my ability as a player, or am I here because they're trying to fill in gaps?
I smooth. Then you must go on Quick Info and look at your average and your strike rate, brother. Then you don't need to look anywhere. Ah, oh no. Oh no, you're not going to use that. We also played cricket in very tough white environments. So I don't want to hear that story at
I
all.
don't know.
I never days, Baba. No. No, we also missed from
But it's a sad reality, though. The thing is, it's a sad reality. Look, Alistair could
it's
see it
also
also. Alistair could see it. I'm sure Alistair could see it also. I'm sure Alistair could see it also. At some point, he was on some. Am I here because of my ability and my experience as a coach, or am I here because they are experimenting on a black coach to take the Springboks forward.
Did he win before that? Before he got the job?
At the Stormers, he was a good coach. Yeah, he was one of the best coaches.
Did he have full autonomy? Because we must also understand that when you get jobs, guys, when coaches get given jobs, do they have the full reign to, with the people and the committee and the board above them, to do it? How many coaches of color? Hey guys, don't get me into coaches because I'm going to speak about friends of mine that deserve positions, so I'm going to leave it.
My fellow peoples, for peace sake, because I feel like we need to have another conversation here in the later stage of the year where we can just unpack all these topics that are coming up at the back end.
It's Sia. I blame Sia.
It's Sia and Sbu. I think we need to put Sia and Sbu and Moko in a room to just break up this conversation for us, because they're giving but in closing to everybody, it was such an honor to be part of the show today. I think there's a lot of learnings and information that came out. Thank you, Coach Sia, for sharing, and Cody, Moko, Sbu, and Arthur for being part of the show. And most importantly, to all of viewers out there, thank you for participating and being part of the show tonight. From my end, Salmon Sports, it's a wrap. Danko. To everybody else,
on Sbu's numbers, bro.
So what happened?
I'm so stuck on Sbu's numbers, man. Like, I'm looking Sbu up on Greek info here. I got names, I got my figures.
You're the worst. Guys.
Oh my god. Oh, yes, no, man. No.
I'll type you guys.